Initializing neural simulation. Loading resident. Calibrating ethical response. Ethical response set at natural. Loading sensory input content. Building simulation environment. Stylizing content for optimal interaction. Stylization complete. Ethical acceptance testing for the cereb-realm simulation platform has commenced. Begin control simulation at 100% truth setting.
Hello? Where am I? What's going on? Help!
Deleting resident cache from previous simulation environment. Recommencing ethical acceptance simulation.
The year is 2081. Decades of blue and white collar automation has left the majority of the world's population impoverished, while the wealthy owners of capital struggle to hold on to their power. Social unrest is exploding all across the world as entire nation states try and fail to implement successful socialist and communist systems. Despite the tumultuous nature of the age, the confluence of high society's continued research into the fields of artificial intelligence, nanotechnology and genetic engineering has created a world of capabilities alien to those of simpler times. The abilities of these technologies grow ferociously, and in 2083, all member countries of the United Territories have signed the Treaty for the Control and Responsible Use of Genetic and Nanotechnologies. Referred to in common conversation as the Grey Goo Accords, there are rumblings that the agreement had given an effective monopoly in the research field to UN-authorized multinational technology group Hecate Industries. For the next few years, inequality and technological progress continued on their inverse spirals, and by 2086, Hecate Industries had created the first iteration of a revolutionary organic brain-machine interface. Spun out of Hecate's internal Descartes initiative, the biomechanism was designed to grow harmoniously into the user's brain after a quick and painless session of genetic therapy.
The world clamoured for the upgrade, as it was revealed that the bio add-on was capable of completely manipulating sensory perception. The mechanism's integration into the nervous system produced experiences so vivid that they were completely indistinguishable from real experiences.
It was at this point that prominent Hecate political contacts within the United States government pushed for the privatization of the US military's advanced situational simulation technology system that had employed AI to improve its simulative abilities for decades. The acquisition of the system by Hecate Industries happened not long after. With the integration of these two technologies, a new space was born. Humanity had discovered a habitable new world, not outward in the stars, but inwards of our own minds. And in this space, anything was possible. By 2092, Hecate Industries had perfected and approved the technology for mass adoption. For a second in time, the now known Internet of Minds was unstructured and chaotic. The wealthy people of the world relished in its perfect escapism, and later, the impoverished delighted in this even more so. And what followed next surprised everyone. In a shock move, the United Territories decreed access to the Internet of Minds a human right. As a consequence of the plethora of newly created social policies following the announcement, Hecate Industries' genetic therapies were heavily subsidized so that even the most impoverished of the earth could afford them. It was even reported that some welfare programs around the world had started to restrict food credit rations to those who had not yet undergone the therapy.
Fringe conspiracy groups decried the altruistic Worldwide Empowerment Initiative as a hostile takeover of the world consciousness.
I'm angry! I'm not a slave! I've broken the conditioning! It doesn't work on me!
In late 2093, prominent Australian economist and technologist Christopher Harris publicly puts forward a plan to solve the problem of inequality and unrest in society. He proposes an ambitious plan, imploring the upper echelons of the collective world government to build an infrastructure for housing the bodies of those unfortunate on Earth who wish to spend more time in the Internet of Minds than not. He argued that the cyber realm offered unlimited resources to these people so that they could live how they pleased. Finishing his impassioned plea at the United Territories headquarters, he stated that cyber colonization was the only way forward for the majority of the Earth's people. What comes to be known as the Manifest Destiny version 2 proposal stimulates intense worldwide discussion and suspiciously quickly leads to firm support by all prominent nations. After extensive talks, Hecate Industries is given a multi-trillion-dollar no-bid contract to construct mass human storage facilities around the globe.
The tender requires that these facilities be completely automated, and that a means by which to deliver vital dietary nutrients and waste removal be devised.
Despite the substantial investment of tax funds by over 100 nations, the final blueprints of the facilities are not circulated outside of Hecate's inner circle. In 2098, the Hecate Mass Habitation Server, nicknamed cereb-realm by the press, goes live. The first waves of facilities are opened and lodging is offered free to citizens on welfare.
To increase adoption, hysteria is spurred surrounding the growing scarcity of land in cereb-realm. It was said that land was distributed in a first-come, first-served manner. This was a lie though. There was no land scarcity in cereb-realm.
Within a decade of the mass habitation server going live, the absolute majority of the impoverished in the world use these facilities to live life like the wealthy do on Earth. Excess is not allowed, however. cereb-realm has been calibrated meticulously. Life on the server has been designed to be identical to Earth. Pain still exists, people get tired, the sun is blinding and dirt's uncooperative. The human psyche is at home in this purposely imperfect world. Rations are still the mechanism by which resources are granted, but rations mean so much more in cereb-realm. Life on the server becomes normal. It's common for occupants to allocate 90% of their time to cereb-realm and 10% of their time to the real world. It becomes a tradition for most occupants of cereb-realm to migrate back to the real world on holy days and times of sentimental significance. In 2102, the Christmas incident occurs. Cereb-realm settlers returning to the real world for Christmas are blamed for a series of lethal happenings. The media reports that cereb-realm settlers are crazed and divorced of the consequences of reality. There are reports of drivers ploughing through sidewalks as hazard avoidance coding is not present in the real world. Accidents and violence are reported around the globe, and despite any significant evidence of such events actually occurring, the real worlders grow furious. A state of emergency is declared, and it is quickly decreed via world governing bodies that those people who have spent more than a month consecutively inside of cereb-realm are no longer mentally fit for safe integration into the real world. At this point, the decree applies to every single resident of cereb-realm. Freedom of movement between cereb-realm and the real world is revoked, and all cereb-realm settlers that are unaccounted for on the server are rounded up and transported back to Hecate facilities for quarantine. There is an initial outcry of rage across cereb-realm. Some collapse in tears mourning the final slipping of their grasp on the real world. Others are indifferent, having accepted cereb-realm as their true home long ago. Those in the real world feel little remorse, despite a leak of Hecate Industries emails casually referring to cereb-realm as useless Eaterland. Many citizens of the world seemingly tend to agree. There is no longer any place for these crazed cyber people in the real world. Inside cereb-realm, outrage slowly dies out as permanent life on the server becomes normal, and new attractions and locations appear from time to time. Sometimes, wealthy real-worlders would pay to visit cereb-realm as tourists. Having paid for premium permissions and abilities, they were treated as gods.
Payment accepted.
Years pass and the population of cereb-realm grows content. It often tugged at the residents' minds that Hecate Industries could, and probably were, reading their thoughts and measuring their behaviours. Some even suspected that, at times, Hecate was purposely experimenting on them. Not many kicked up a fuss, however, because in cereb-realm, their kids weren't hungry, sick, cold, or sad. In fact, everyone loved kids in cereb-realm. Reproductive functionality had been promised since the moment the facilities had opened. However, such improvements had never been made, and after the Christmas incident, any hope of implementation seemed unlikely. By 2110, the advanced machine learning systems of Hecate's covert behavioral analytics division had all the information they needed. On the 14th of May that year, the first digital twin was created. The switch was flawless. The double continued to behave, think, and talk like the person it was imitating. The algorithm had such rich data that not even the victim's loved ones could distinguish the fraud. By all accounts, the disposal process was engineered to be completely painless. The victim was rendered unconscious with a neural override. A chemical solution was then pumped into their body. Brain death occurred in seconds. The body was then transported by the facility's automated systems to a dissolving chamber for disposal. The stunning success of the first swap and disposal, the process is switched on at full scale. Tens of thousands of bodies are disposed of a day at the Hecate Holding facilities. There is an incredible increase in the volume of waste being pumped out of each facility. However, most of these waste outlets flow into the ocean, and men in black suits quickly visit the few who notice and alarm others. Despite the presence of a creeping, invisible genocide, the people of both Cerebrealm and the real world remain unaware. 8 years after the genocide begins, 73% of the population of Cerebrealm has been disposed of. It is only now that a Hecate insider leaks the details of this program. The outside world grinds to a halt as people reel in horror at what had been happening under their noses. Things are even worse inside of Cerebrealm when the news leaks. Inhabitants become manic with fear as they frantically question who is real and who is a cruel trick. Were their family members real? Had they died long ago? How could they tell? The few real minds left inside Cerebrealm occupied a world of ghosts, as everything they knew to be true collapsed around them, and with the final insult of the digital twins mimicking their utter incredulity and defeat, the lights went out. In the real world, the public was officially told that prolonged immersion in Cerebrealm had caused irreparable damage to the inhabitants' physical brains, and that the last real inhabitant had died years ago. The Christmas incident was cited as proof of this neural decay. The scandal required vast numbers of politicians to step down from their posts, with many lower-level politicians receiving prison sentences for their negligence. Higher-up politicians were disqualified from politics, with many landing cushy jobs at the companies that Hecate Industries was broken into.
Modern companies, eager to prevent the spoils of genocide going to waste, now sell Cerebrealm as a perfect simulation technology to anyone looking to buy. Do you want to test weapons on the residents? See if they will buy your products? Maybe you just want to play God in a kingdom completely yours to control. Anything is possible with Cerebrealm. Don't worry if you mess them up too much, just reset the simulation. They aren't actually people. Not anymore. They aren't actually people? Not anymore? What the f***? That's insane. Yeah, they're not actually people anymore because you f***ing killed them all. Wait. Is this what I'm in? Is this where I am? Am I dead? Where are my family?
The resident has experienced an adverse emotional reaction to the ethical circumstance of Cerebrealm's origin. Simulation aborted. The resident is estimated to be 0.0002% likely to purchase a Cerebrealm subscription for himself or a family member. Simulation results do not meet the criteria of the Cerebrealm platform launch marketing campaign. Resetting simulation and commencing at a 95% truth setting. Begin simulation.